Room recorded, thank you. Item number 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on Friday, the 14th of October 22. First of all, can I confirm that all members have received them? Confirmed, yes. Thank you. Yes, we have. We now have to confirm that they are a correct record of that meeting. I'll go through it by pages. Page 1. Any observations? Page 2. And it's page 3 of your document. And page 4. So we're saying that they are a correct recording of that meeting.
Agreed.
Thank you. Agreed. Item number 4 on the agenda is public question time. Justin, do we have any questions?
No questions, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5. It says on your the agenda, it just says Debbie being in Australia, she's handed that duty over to Rebecca. Becky, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Put your mic.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to take you through the administration and regulatory updates agenda item 5 report. So starting on page 6, you've got an update there, pension board members, on communications. So standard agenda item there around how many of our scheme members are registered for the My Pension Online portal. Then at 9.2, we've just given you an update that at the moment, earlier on this year, we were starting to plan some of our key communication activities, deferred active newsletters, P60s, and the things that we would normally communicate out to employees month by month. At point 10 there, you've got a link to some information from the Scheme Advisory Board from their last meeting held on the 5th of December. Then moving on to point 11, we've provided you an update there on the McLeod judgment. So back end of 2022, there was a flurry of activity. So we had some new legislation, the Public Service Pensions Judicial Officers Act 2022. And this set out a few bits of missing information, but we still very much need more information in order to fully put our McLeod project into play. So we've got some information here from this Act. It covers around the powers to pay compensation, covering interest, but we really, that's not enough. Really, we need the proper legislation. We going on to 11.3 and 11.4. We were expecting the results of a consultation early this year. We're now on the 17th of February and we haven't had that. I've heard that we are expecting to we were hoping to have the final McLeod regulations July time, but again, that could potentially move into September, potentially. That, as highlighted in the report, this is a concern for all LGPS funds. This isn't just a Shropshire issue. Until we see that legislation, we really can't fully, we can plan as much as we can with what we know, but we can't fully enact what we need to do. I understand from the scheme advisory point of view, there is going to be a document coming out later this month, which funds will be able to use to guide them of how to deal with any gaps in data. So that is potentially coming. And also there is another consultation, but again, as of today, there's something in my inbox that I haven't seen. We are still waiting for key legislation. I know that's quite a significant area, so I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Okay. Question about those.
Is there still a lot of work to do that's depending on this information that you require? Or have you got all the basic stuff there and it's a matter of sorting out a couple of spreadsheets and getting the right answers?
I wouldn't like to agree. I wouldn't like to say yes. It's sorting out a couple of spreadsheets, so there is a lot of work to do. We've had the last consultation on this was in 2020, so we haven't even had the response to that. So we've got what we think the remedy will look like, but if when it comes in black and white in the legislation things are different, that will change. As a fund, we've done a significant amount of work up until this point, working with our actuaries, Mercers, to analyse our data, categorise it, and that's literally what we're doing now. But we can't consider even the rectification side, communication, all that kind of stuff until the legislation comes. So we can do lots of work on our data. Where are there gaps and where they're not gaps? Great, but we can't consider the rectification side until that legislation comes.
Right, so sort of all dressed up but no place to go yet.
Yes, yeah, we can do as much planning as we possibly can. If something comes in that isn't expected, then that will halt the project. But safety in numbers, we aren't the only fund in this position. It is a national issue.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I just check that the valuations that were done recently include some assumptions and costing for McLeod, so that we're all paying it as if it's been settled? And
it does, yes.
Yeah.
Rebecca, I'd like to go back to 9.2
Okay.
on page 6. I was asked for one of our members, his name was Roger, I didn't get his last name unfortunately. He says, are the pension board committee still producing the In Touch? And he gave me this copy from 2018
Yes.
magazine.
We absolutely are. So
Obviously you haven't received it.
okay. So the April edition is literally being planned now. If a scheme member has requested a paper copy of their P60, they'll get a copy through the post with their P60. If they haven't, they'll get it sent by email. Then we do, so it's a biannual newsletter, that is. We also then do a edition in the autumn time, and that one is sent out to everyone. So I can perhaps have a chat with you afterwards just to have a look to make sure that.
You give me the 2018 copy.
Oh, it's good to know that someone's wanting to read it. So yeah, we absolutely still do that, and it comes out in spring and the autumn time.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Couple of points. The My Pension Online, I was surprised how low the figures were for active members. Are we really pushing this very hard? I'd have expected active members in the fund to be 60, 70, 80%. They're way below that.
Yeah, I don't have, I think we mentioned this last time, I don't have any benchmark figures for across the country. I do anecdotally, and that is quite high, talking to other funds.
Comparatively high.
Comparatively high. Also, they're quite high. Known other funds, perhaps who hadn't switched on their My Pension Online earlier, so we were quite an early adopter. That said, I agree with you, there's still 52% of the fund who aren't looking at their benefits online. We try as much as possible to sort of push it, but what we're actually just starting to do, which kind of halted a little bit due to COVID, we're just starting to plan some workplace activities, so actually going out to employers, workplaces, rolling out presentations. In my experience, when we've done that seems to get some traction of people signing up. But I think this next half of people, getting them to sign up, will be the difficult half. People perhaps don't want to or just not interested.
Do you think it's partly because people, if they're nowhere near the retirement point, are not interested in what it's going to be because it's so far off in the distance? Is that a problem?
I think that is, without, we haven't asked our members recently why they haven't signed up. That's quite a difficult task because we collect email addresses and we email out lots of information. Those members you could sort of describe as engaged with the fund, they get information. How do we engage people who we can't engage really? So there is a piece of work which we're planning to do with annual benefit statements this year, is actually send a letter out to all active members to say, great, you're registered, your ABS is there, or the other letter will be, we notice you're not registered, here's the information. So we haven't done that for a couple of years, so that is an activity we're planning for this year's ABS. So yeah, we want to boost that because I think with the dashboard around the corner as well, there'll be more kind of incentives really for or pull for members to go online to look at their benefits.
And on McLeod, if I might just ask, on McLeod, I've got no feel for the size of McLeod for this to the fund. Though. Is it 6 figures, 7 figures, a big amount, a large amount, a manageable amount? Has anybody quantified anywhere near being able to quantify that?
So do you, I could talk about the impact on members, but the monetary impact, do you mean, Marcus?
Yeah, monetary impact on the fund. Yeah.
I probably, I don't have that information to hand in terms of monetary impact. That could be something we'd look at producing for the next.
I certainly would like to know that, because if we're chasing £100,000 in this £2.5 billion pot, that's one thing.
Yeah.
If we're chasing 2 million, then it's another.
Yeah, we did have, and forgive me, I don't have them in hand, the scheme actuary in the 2019 valuation, and also the valuation that's just happened in the 2020. That has McLeod has been costed for each employer in the fund, so we've got the information at employer level, but I'm not without having a look back at what we've been provided, we potentially do have that information. So let me take that back and we can have.
Be interesting, Chair, if we could get that to the next meeting or the one after, to give us a feel for this.
Yeah, so could we put that down for an action for the next meeting, please, Michelle?
Yeah.
Thank you. Claire?
Yeah, just picking up on that point, it would be good to know what the cost was for each employer, for the employers to know as well. So if that could be passed on.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's in our statement somewhere, but I don't think it is. The other point I was going to make about the My Pension Online for active members, I was going to, you've got contacts obviously in each employer. I was going to do sort of, an email to all our staff and say, My Pension Online is here, you should be using it. Yeah, you could use it. I probably could tie in with what you're sending out in terms of, how you access it easily. So I think, contacting employers to get the active members on board is perhaps a really good way of doing it.
Thank you. And I just want to comment that that's exactly the approach that we want our employers to take. We do every August when we send out our annual benefit statements. We also then inform employers, say, we've just sent these, can you please pass this message on? And we actually give some wording, exactly how you just described it, actually, to post on staff notice boards and things like that. That's as much, apart from forcing them to do it, we expect employers to be able to, they're closer to their staff than us. So we really need their help. So thank you for that, Claire. We can certainly, and that is part of our comms plan when we start running these sessions. We're hoping around April time, we'll run some presentations. And we've actually been looking at data recently on which employers have the lowest take up. So we've got that information and we're targeting those. But as you can imagine, the biggest employers have got the most take up, but also the most percentage of not, because of the very size of them. So that's literally a piece of work that's happening now. We're kind of working out what we could deliver realistically, how we're going to deliver it, because we can't, with the resources, attend each workplace of 150 odd employers in the fund. So yeah, great question, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Liz, can I just ask if you've got any questions, please?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. No more questions from members? Okay, thank you for that. The report is to be noted. So can I confirm that it's noted? Thank you.
Sure. There is a bit more if you want me to go through it, but I'm happy to.
Yeah, if you've got some more, yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I've got up to point 12. So then we talk about pensions dashboard. So there's some information there for again some regulations that came in back end of last year to enact or start to enact the pension dashboard regulations. Again, this is a bit of an unknown. We know lots of known unknowns. One thing the fund has done when we've procured for our system provider, we have in part of that put consideration for an ISP provider, which we know we're going to need. But again, that is still the meat on the bones just isn't there with how we're going to do this and what we're going to need to do. We're not alone with that. It's not just the local government pension scheme as well. This is industry wide. So there is a lot of information coming out from the pensions regulator, from government. So watch this space on that one. Point 13. we had the scheme, we had the valuation, last year, and we had an employers meeting, which was held online. And this was a meeting where all employers were invited to hear from the scheme actuary, the fund actuary, on the valuation for the results of the 2022 valuation. Then we launched the consultation on the funding strategy statement, which ended on the 31st of January, and we had one response to that consultation. So as of today, we've communicated largely, we've got a few mop-ups to do, but we've communicated largely with all active employers in the fund their 2022 valuation results. And we are now waiting for the final valuation report, which will have to be put on our website by the 31st of March. Then at point 14 is just to update you on a project that the team are undertaking at the moment, looking at frozen refunds. Some of these are quite old, they're legacy refunds that at that point in time when someone left, they didn't engage, didn't take their refund for whatever reason. So we are just every month we're writing out about 120 letters to these people where we still hold an address for them, getting them to contact us to claim that refund. I would say one of the bits of feedback that we've got, we thought that we'd have a bigger take up of, writing to someone and say, we owe you this money, do you want it? Or you must have it, should I say. But we did have some calls, people worried that it might be a scam. So we've put information on our website. We've been taking calls to reassure and provide that information. But yeah, we were scratching our heads what else we could have done really with the wording of the letter. So, but yeah, we're getting through those. I think on the last batch we did 120. We've paid 18 so far. So yeah, so it could be that some of those letters have landed incorrectly at addresses because no one's updated us. So then we'll take another project to trace these people. So work is being done. And that's me at the end of this paper on behalf of Debbie Sharp. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, we'll Claire again, please. I'll come back to you in a minute, Liz.
With the frozen refunds, do you know which employers they are from?
We would do, but I don't know. Yeah, we would do. So yes, we would have that information.
I'd quite like to know if there's any, I'm sure other employers would as well, if there's any within our employer.
Yeah.
Because what happens if they don't get in touch then and they don't want the money? What happens with that money? Does it go back to the employer?
It doesn't go back to the employer, no, because that member could claim that benefit or should claim that benefit. That those contributions are in the regulations to go back to the member. So that actually we record ourselves as a breach for not being able to pay that refund. But that money does to stay in the fund. For these particular ones, the older ones, they're actually accruing interest because of the way the scheme rules were at that point in time. So that's why we're really focusing on these ones to try and get these paid. What we can do, what we're planning to do, where we the most significant ones, some of them are very small amounts, sort of less than 20 quid, but the ones that are very small amounts, even less than £5, perhaps someone's worked one day in a casual post, but that's still money that's due back to them. But some of them are a bit more significant amounts. So our next stage of this budget would be to look at the amount, and it obviously costs the fund money to trace someone to go through all that kind of process. So we'll be looking at how we do that and the timescales for that. So, but we would go that next step to trace people.
Thank you for that. Liz, your question, please.
Thank you. Going back to point 13. I was wondering, in terms of the employer meeting, how many employers are engaged? Because we talk a lot about pension, member engagement, but we don't actually talk about the employer engagement. So how many employers attended the meeting, and equally how many actually asked for any further meetings like with the actuary that were offered?
That's a really good question. Thanks, Liz. I've got all of that information that I can send out to you. I don't have it to hand. I can tell you anecdotally, though, that we didn't have 100% of our employers attend that meeting, unfortunately, as much as we would have liked that result. And we managed to fill 2 or 3 days, I think, of one-to-ones with the actuary. So quite a few employers did take up that opportunity. I can send out find that information out to the board or report it in the next paper of employer take up. I think off the top of my head it was around 50% of employers that were represented, but unfortunately this issue of engagement with employers has been around for a long time. That sometimes employers don't want to engage or attend meetings.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you for that, Liz. There, what's more here?
Just to say, I did obviously attend that, and I also followed up with a one-to-one after. And I do have to say, I gave the feedback as well on the session that it is extremely difficult for people to engage in and to follow. And even my one-to-one session was extremely difficult to engage with and follow. So, and that's coming from myself. So I think it is a real issue, and I know it's a really complex area, but somehow we have to try and simplify it so people can understand, and they just do want to understand why their fund position has changed in particular. So I think that somehow we need to speak to the actuaries and say, you know, you're not hitting the mark with employers, because I've spoken to other people who did attend and basically they were just lost after the first sort of 15-20 minutes really. So it's a shame because it is complex, but we do need to realise that's what the situation is.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Liz.
If I could just follow up on that. If you consider the meeting and a follow-up meeting as complex, being able to respond to a consultation is even more complex for employers, I would suggest. And I note that you've only had one reply. And we've, you know, there's a lot of time given for, you know, the member engagement, but we don't really maybe look at employer engagement quite so much.
Just one moment. Go on.
I was just I take those comments, Claire, completely. It's discussions that we've been having internally around if there's any way we can do it differently, around segmenting employers, maybe get employers in a certain sector together. So yeah, completely take those comments and we'll take them back and think about how we can do it differently.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any more questions, please, from
Yes, sorry, I just had a question on the refunds, frozen refund project. Does it get to a point where you would consider writing off any amounts after a certain time period?
It's difficult because the regulations say we've got to pay this refund. So no, we can't write off money that's due back to a member. If they're very small, potentially we can just stop chasing because it's not worth the time and the resource to do that, you know, for potentially less than £5 or something. But there has to be an end point of trying to be able to get this money back to someone. Unfortunately, unless it comes out further down the line, the dashboard was going to be our sort of hope for getting rid of some of these refunds and paying these back. But the last consultation response I saw was that frozen refunds were not in scope. So, which is a huge shame, I think, because if you'd logged on, or anyone logged on and said, "Oh, I forgot about that small pot in Shropshire," so it's just a shame that perhaps, because all funds across the country will be having the same issue, these really small pots, and we thought the dashboard was going to help us solve some of this, but potentially it's not.
Challenge, I should imagine.
It is. Yeah. Thank you.
there must be some sort of time limit, because in 100 years' time, you're still not going to be looking for that £5 one, are you? I mean,
You would hope not.
Probably the postage would be above.
Yeah.
more than £5 by then, yeah.
That's exactly the issue. Yeah.
Okay, for that second part of the presentation, can we note that, please? Noted. Thank you. We're now on item agenda item number 6, which is the Pensions Committee reports and feedback. Are there any feedback from the reports? It was a very, very long Pensions Committee, as I'm sure Justin can verify. And I was online, so it was very long. No feedback? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I thought the climate risk reduction, that was the right, there was a paper on that, wasn't there, on it? That seemed quite a positive paper, I think, in terms of our reduction in those areas. Yeah, just wanted to make that comment.
Just a comment on the climate, thank you. Liz, any comments? No, thank you. We're going to agenda item number 7, which is the date of the next meeting. It says in your agenda that it's going to be the 28th of April. That's under discussion because we've got a couple of members who are not here, including myself. So we're looking at dates at the moment. We're looking at the 9th of May. If you can let Michelle know that if you're available on that date, and then we'll do it for the 9th of May. We've also listed for you the future meetings, the last 2 in 2022-23 and the 2 in 24. Again, if you've got any queries on those or you can't make any of those, if you can let the officers know, please, that would be very good. Agenda item number 8, the exclusion of press and public. That's not to read it out in the living. To resolve that in accordance with the provision of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, Section 5 of the Local Authorities, brackets executive arrangements, brackets meetings and access to information, brackets England, regulations, and paragraph 3 of the Council's access to information, the public and press be excluded during the consideration of the following items. Thank you. We're just going to turn off now, so you've got a couple of minutes.